Need to come up for a word for angry flapping because there's going to be a lot of it. And flangering. Welcome to Queerly Autistic. My name is Erin. I'm queer and autistic, and I like to talk about stuff in an autistically queer way. Woohoo! Now, let's complain about Sia. And by complain, I mean raise some really important points about the harm that she and her new film have done to the autistic community and have the potential to do to the autistic community, particularly the non-speaking autistic community, in the future. There's a lot of media out there that's only partially covering the extent of this, and that's not okay. It's just not okay. It's being framed as like a controversy or a tiff around casting disabled characters, but it just goes so much bloody deeper than that, and no one's even going there, and it's just frustrating me. But I think it's important to start with the casting issue because then I can build on everything else that's happened, because it's been an evolving situation. Music is a film by the pop star Sia, centred around a woman played by Kate Hudson, who becomes the main carer for her non-speaking autistic teenage sister, Music. From there, everyone learns some things. The autistic character teaches the neurotypical characters the importance of life and blah, and there's some very overstimulating, brightly coloured dance sequences for some reason that are potentially supposed to illustrate the inner world of the autistic character, which is a whole other kettle of problematic fish around the idea that autism is a prison that is holding back the real person and how that fuels cure culture. But we'll go into that in a little bit more detail later on. When the trailer for the film dropped a few months ago, there was an understandable backlash around the fact that the decision had been made to cast Maddie Ziegler in the role of Music. Not only is Maddie not a non-speaking autistic person, which is important in and of itself, but she's also not an autistic person at all, which means that this is essentially a non-autistic person mimicking the mannerisms of a non-speaking autistic person for the entertainment of the masses. Now, this isn't good for a number of reasons, although it's not a simple cut and dry argument, but the fact is that it's very rare that a non-disabled person does anything other than be offensive and harmful when trying to portray a disability they don't have. I mean, I know for me personally that watching non-autistic actors playing autistic characters is like watching myself being mocked in real time, because they're only copying and play acting the surface level of what they can see. For example, oh, she does weird things with her hand when she talks, therefore the actor does weird things with her hands when she talks, but it's not with the depth and understanding and complexity of what's actually going on for me and why I do it and how I feel, if that makes sense. However good and sincere the acting might be, it very often becomes this walking stereotype, sort of reenacting and mirroring behaviours that they see as autistic but don't understand in the way that someone who is actually autistic would understand. For example, we know from reports that Maddie prepared for the role by watching videos that had been uploaded to social media by parents of autistic kids having meltdowns. I mean, these videos themselves cause autistic people a lot of concern because of the privacy of those kids being filmed in such distress and then sort of paraded on the internet without their consent a lot of the time. So she's only seeing the autistic experience in terms of the autistic person in distress, which isn't a fully rounded experience of being autistic. To be clear, I'm not advocating for anybody to have a go at Maddie. She was quite literally a child, and Sia is an adult figure with a massive influence on her life. In fact, Maddie's instincts around playing this character were undeniably really very good. Sia admitted that Maddie became upset during the filming because she felt like what she was doing was making fun of people and mocking them, and she didn't want to continue. And not only did Sia persuade her to continue, but she promised that she wouldn't let that happen. Which shows not only a lack of care for autistic people, the people that Maddie was expressing her sincere concerns about, but also a lack of care for Maddie and encouraging her to ignore her really well-honed fears and allowing her to end up in a situation like this. So we need to save our ire for Sia, which most people have. I mean, you've got to question yourself when a 14-year-old has better instincts on this than your grown-ass self, but Ricky Pointer did a really good video that covered a lot of this around the casting, so I'll pop the link to that in the description, and I'll try and add some other bits and bobs because a lot of this stuff goes really deep and it could take hours for me to do the sort of justice that I'd personally be happy with doing. Adding on to the fact that the performances are often contrived and offensive, it's also incredibly difficult for disabled actors to find work as it is. Often their only chance to get roles is roles that are specifically written about their disability. And if even that chance is handed to an able person, someone who doesn't have that specific disability, then it disadvantages disabled actors in every sense. It also makes it harder for disabled people to get disabled roles in the future because it sets a standard of what it means to perform disability in a way that many disabled people don't actually perform it. There were also other criticisms around the trailer in that it seemed to depict a sort of colourful world trapped in an autistic body type narrative, which I think has been confirmed since the film has come out that is the case. Now, I know that some autistic people do feel like this, so it is not untrue for everybody, but it's not something that a non-autistic person should be playing with. Because that right there pushes a narrative around a cure, which leads to forced compliance training and making us be more neurotypical instead of accommodating us and supporting us to be who we are. I mean, Sia herself did eventually confirm that the reason she cast Maddie was because of these dance sequences, which she considered too difficult for a non-speaking autistic actor to do, which does beg the question. If your non-speaking autistic character does things that a non-speaking autistic actor can't do, then maybe you need to rethink your entire film and whether you're actually doing any justice in terms of portraying the reality of being autistic and non-speaking. It's just a thought. When these concerns were raised with Sia, she not only didn't listen, but she doubled down, and that was when the real escalation happened. There are terrible portrayals of autism and disability all the time. I feel like we're discussing it every other week. But Sia's response elevated the lack of care from bad representation, as far as we could see from the trailer, into a paternalistic saviour complex and a complete disregard for autistic humanity. For example, when an autistic actress tweeted Sia to say that she would have liked an opportunity to try the role, Sia responded to her by saying, "Well, maybe you're just a bad actor." Now, there's a whole other conversation about whether speaking autistics should play non-speaking autistic characters, and I'm personally inclined to approach it with caution, as the experiences of speaking autistics are incredibly different often to non-speaking autistics. And I'm going to link down below to an amazing essay that was published by Hari Srinivasan, which touches on this issue and the issue of non-speaking involvement in these kinds of films. However, from that discussion, Sia's response not only refuses to engage with the points that the actress in question was making, but actively makes fun of her and essentially sicks her fans onto this person with absolutely no attempts to hold them back in any way. This happened numerous times, with Sia responding to autistic people in a way that demonstrated she had not listened to anything they had to say, and then disappearing when her response inevitably led to crowds of fans harassing autistic Twitter users to the point where some were forced to lock their accounts or even leave Twitter. I personally, despite never receiving a response from Sia on my tweets, had loads of her fans coming into my replies questioning whether I was really autistic, and also telling me that I would have been better off dead than born autistic. It's hard to believe that your project really comes from love of autistic people when you're drawing attention to autistic accounts and making no attempt to even say to your fans, "Hey, maybe stop harassing autistic people online." It seems like the bare basics here, but not for Sia. I've spoken to JJ Green, an autistic actor who wrote about the film and about ableism in the industry, and he was kind enough to give me a write-up of what happened to him, which I'm going to read out now. As an autistic actor, when the trailer dropped, I started to educate people on why ableism within the arts was very prevalent. I posted my first article that vaguely referenced Sia as the catalyst for the article, but also drew attention to many other works of fictional media centred around disabled people, but without us in it. After months of doing this, I then wrote my article that went viral to cohesively get all the facts down about music that make it so much more worrying than perhaps most neurotypical audiences realised. The article caused outrage and did a very good job of showing people exactly what it is we're angry about, and I was really glad to reach that many people. During this time, I didn't inbox, message, or reply to anyone in any manner, aggressive or otherwise, off or on the thread, including Sia. I didn't swear, I didn't shout, I didn't demean or use offensive language, I just gave verifiable facts. My inbox, however, was piled with aggression for Sia fans, calling me everything under the sun, all of which had no founding. Every slur you can imagine, from ableist to homophobic, in such severe context, I had to remove myself from Twitter for a few days just to breathe and block off my inbox and comments. The insults from her fandom were so huge that several accounts have since been permanently suspended for death threats. I then realised that Sia had blocked me. She made no attempt at any point to communicate with me, counteract my arguments, or have any discussion, as she said in her now deleted tweets, she wanted with those of us in the community. I spoke to a few other autistic artists here in England who've had the same response. It seems whenever a post gains a lot of attention she doesn't like, her response is to block them, so it's less likely to stick to her due to the way that the Twitter algorithm works. I want to be super clear. At no point did I lie, and at no point did I use any language or aggression towards anyone. I never inboxed Sia or commented on her stuff. She had no reason to block me or see me as a threat, only the fact that I was a threat to the movie's success. Meanwhile, she's picking any autistic person she can find who likes the film and promoting them on her platform, which is just tokenising and cherry-picking from a community to suit your own narrative. The fact the bare minimum of us like this movie, but she's elected to elevate those voices because it serves her goals, especially now that the movie has been revealed to contain dangerous restraints, is very, very worrying. I will link to JJ's Twitter in the description box, so please go check him out. And thank you, JJ, for telling me your experience. It is infuriating. JJ also touches on the end there to the main crux of why I and many others are now so even more loudly concerned about this film. Because bad representation is bad, we know the impact it can have, but what Sia has done in this movie goes beyond that to actively promoting something that harms and kills autistic people, especially non-speaking autistic people and autistic people of colour. A few weeks ago, Autich on TikTok leaked a scene from the film in which the main character was shown tackling music to the ground and pinning her there with her body in order to mitigate a meltdown. And that is just... I don't think I can put into words how distressing and dangerous this is. I can't believe it's in the film. Well, I can believe it, but I also can't. I am disgusted but not shocked. I'm going to show the clip now, so please skip to the timestamp that I'm going to put here if you don't want to see it. We're also then going to be talking about prone restraint and some cases in which it has been dangerous and fatal, so I want you to protect yourself in whatever way you need to. So, here's the clip.
That thing.
I'm not climbing on top of a small screaming white girl in the middle of this park. It's your turn.
My turn.
You can do this. I'll talk you through it. Go ahead.
I can't. Okay, music, it's okay. Ouch. She's hitting me.
I mean, it's taking me a long time to figure out what to say about this. There isn't just a stream of curse words and shouting, but I'm gonna try because words. The technique of prone restraint is basically where you hold someone face down on the ground in order to apparently stop them hurting themselves or other people. Although it is something that is used by the police, it's also used in a lot of places where you have kids or adults with higher support needs, such as group homes, institution settings, and of course schools that specialise in autistic and disabled children. Although the film shows a not very accurate and incredibly unprofessional version of this technique, for example, there would normally be more than one person doing it, even when done in a trained way, holding someone, especially someone in the middle of a meltdown and sensory overload, down like that is deeply distressing and can cause long-term trauma in people who have experienced it. Guy Stevens from the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint says, "The depiction of physical restraint in this film perpetuates the idea that physical restraint is an acceptable practice. It is not. The film contains at least 2 scenes in which prone restraint is used on an autistic character, and it is implied that it is safe and therapeutic. It is not. We recommend that these scenes be removed from the film as they will cause harm to autistic people around the world." Sorry, I just had to take a moment to put my flag back on my chat because I realised it had been hanging off for the whole time I was filming and I'm not refilming. So, anyway, I've spoken to autistic people on Twitter who speak of the long-lasting impact of being subjected to this kind of restraint. A Twitter user called Gilly Guide had their tweets quoted in a BBC article around how the leak scene brought back traumatic memories, and I'm just going to read those tweets out to you now because I think they're incredibly powerful to read. "Today I'm haunted by the decision of others to restrain me. Traumatic clips brought up by watching a clip of Sia's new movie, Music, where she proudly displays abuse of autistic people through restraints, nearly 20 years later and still paying the price. That's what Sia has created. Whether she had the best intentions in the world, this is what she has created. Not only is it distressing and traumatic, but it's physically dangerous. When done properly, it shouldn't be fatal, even though it's still incredibly harmful and there's always a chance of it being damaging. But more often than not, however well trained the person is in this harmful technique, it's done in a way that does hurt people. Kids have come out of these restraints with broken bones, and far too many have died from asphyxiation after being held on their stomachs, pressed face first into the ground, sometimes for up to an hour." Sia released an interview talking about this scene a few weeks ago, and her main stressor was that it was powerful and important to show what it was like to be a carer, having to do this kind of thing to an autistic person in public. Directly quoted, she said, "The scene was so important to me because of all the people staring. I felt compelled to put it in. I just thought that was so powerful and scary, really scary, for the caregiver who has to have those kind of thoughts." The thing was, on the same day, another article was released exposing the death of a young autistic man of colour who died after being restrained in this way by the police. His name was Eric Parser, and he was 16 years old when in January 2020 they held him down in prone restraint and sat on him for more than 9 minutes. His family have filed a lawsuit because the coroner ruled it as an accidental death. I'm actually going to quote a tweet from Autistic Hats on Twitter, as I think they sum it up better than I ever could, and I'll link to the full thread in the description. "Autistic people are being killed. We are being killed by people who don't know how to handle meltdowns, who use dangerous tactics like the ones shown in this film. Eric Parser, 16. Max Benson, 13. Corey Foster, 16. Faith Finley, 17. And the list of deaths goes on. And the list does go on, and will only grow because of this type of treatment. And Sia wants to talk about how her inclusion of this restraint is important and powerful because I should have sympathy for the people doing the restraining. I mean, I think I'll keep all my love and support and all of my solidarity and all of the fight I have in me for the person who is on the floor being abused. Not only that, but the film doesn't even question whether this type of restraint should happen, instead depicting it as necessary, not something to be criticised. It happens 3 times in the film and is directly referred to as her crushing music with love. The advocacy groups Communication First, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network and Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint actually released a joint press release in early February saying that although Sia had actually reached out to them recently, although not during the purported 7 years it took her to conceive and put the film together, but the communication between them and Sia's team broke down after the organisations put forward a list of recommendations on how to make the film less harmful. And there are a few quotes in the press release that I'd like to share with you. Torna Szymanski, Executive Director of Communication First, said, "Music's restraint scenes will undoubtedly cause harm to autistic people. Because many autistic people have experienced restraint, some will be traumatised by watching the film. The movie also irresponsibly suggests that people experiencing meltdowns should be restrained, which could not be further from the truth." And then Zoe Gross, the Director of Advocacy at the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, or ASAN, says, "Music doesn't just promote harmful stereotypes about autistic people, it shows restraints that have killed members of our community as necessary and loving acts. This film should never have been made, and it shouldn't be shown." Now, the latest development is that following on from the film being nominated for 2 Golden Globes, including in one of the Best Film categories, despite it getting terrible reviews from critics and audiences and currently having a Rotten Tomatoes score of 29%, the fact that it was still nominated just shows how hypnotised Hollywood is by these sorts of bullshit inspiration narratives around disability. The outrage around the film began to grow louder following these nominations and even seep into some of the more mainstream press. In the wake of this, Sia announced that she had listened to the wrong people and that she would be implementing a warning saying that the film does not condone restraints, which is interesting wording considering that it very clearly does do that, and warning against their use, and also that the scenes would be removed in later presses of the film. I'm finding it really hard to bake any cookies and give them to her because this feels like the bare minimum at this point. And also that this is coming now off the back of the Golden Globe stuff. After months of tearing down autistic people on Twitter, she gets to say, "I'm sorry," and then we just go, "Oh, that's fine." I'm not really feeling it. Not to mention, she didn't credit the work of the disabled people's organisations in coming up with these ideas and putting them to her in the first place, not even tagging those organisations in her tweets so that people can go and support them and learn more, which seems like the bare minimum at this point, to be honest. And now she's deleted her Twitter straight after that apology instead of using the platforms that she has to elevate the work and the voices of autistics, particularly non-speaking autistics, and taking steps to rectify the misinformation that she spread on those platforms. This isn't just a one-time thing. This is a commitment. Especially now that it has a Golden Globe nomination under its belt, people are going to go and see the film. They are not going to pay attention to the warning, and even if they did, what are they going to take from the rest of the film? It's not good enough, Sia. You don't get to apologise, throw in a few things that are good, I will concede that they're good, but have no plans around pulling the film or rejecting those nominations, and then you scarper off Twitter to avoid any further accountability. You have power, you have a platform that we don't have. You have used it and caused harm, and if you truly recognise the issue, then you need to use that same platform to at least try and mitigate the harm that you caused on it. This is your film. This is all on you. It's not enough. It's definitely not enough after the months we've had and how you have reacted to autistic people really trying to reach you and educate you. And yes, some people were understandably upset and furious, but many also put the emotional energy into calmly and politely trying to make you see where we were coming from. And you positioned yourself as the victim. It's not genuine, it's not helpful, it's just so performative. Even if you mean it well, as with everything else around this film, impact trumps intention in every way. and your impact has been and could be catastrophic. In fact, what it looks like to me, and I know to many of us, is that this is another attempt to place yourself in a position of sympathy, to have people reaffirm to you that you are good and you shouldn't let the nasty people bully you off Twitter. And all it will do is inspire your fans to attack and harass autistic people on Twitter with even more vigour. If you want to be sorry, then you need to stop talking and start listening right now. Not just to me, but to everyone, particularly non-speaking autistics, whom your film hurts far more than it does me. But in terms of listening, start with me if you want to, because I've got some constructive ideas on what needs to happen now. Ears out. 1. Sia needs to pull this film. Not just edit it, not just add a warning, but pull it completely. The whole thing is harmful, not just those parts we have identified as the most dangerous, and it needs to be gone. 2. Either the Golden Globes must rescind the nomination or Sia must turn the nominations down. Both of them, even the Best Actress one for Kate Hudson. There can't be any positive publicity for this film whatsoever. 3. Streaming services and cinemas, if and when they open, need to commit to not showing this film. We as a community and our allies need to start tweeting streaming services and loudly making it known that this can't stand. 4. Sia needs to reopen her Twitter. She needs to listen to what people have been saying, and she has to commit to establishing her platform as a place where autistic voices can be elevated, where campaigns against things like prone restraints and the abuse of non-speaking autistic people can be elevated to her millions and millions of followers. She put this misinformation out into the world, and now she needs to use that same platform to at least attempt to start rectifying it. The fact that the media is still framing this as a disagreement about casting choices when it is so much more than that is infuriating. The issues with this film go to the very heart of why the world is dangerous for autistic people and how people can kill us whilst thinking that they're actually loving us. This is about people's lives and people's humanity. And if you aren't including that in your pieces, then you need to stop talking and start listening. And we, as speaking autistics, need to be doing more for non-speaking autistics, as well as acknowledging that although this film is harmful to us all, it is most harmful to those of us who don't speak, and therefore they have to be absolutely central to every part of the work that we do. We do share an experience, but we also don't share an experience. I am going to link in the description a tweet thread that lists people that you can follow, people who've written things, all non-speaking autistic people, and we need to start listening to those people. And I'm going to end the video with a quote from that amazing essay by Harry. If you have a voice, you can use it to help bring dignity back for the members of the more marginalised autistics. Use the power of social media to spread the message. Interrupt the usage of functioning labels when you hear it and encourage the alternative terminology of support needs. And let's change the plot lines and the narratives around non-speaking autistics so more and more are allowed to be visible in society and avail of opportunities in all kinds of areas. Then we will truly see more and more non-speaking autistic actors who will be able to provide us with more positive and authentic representations. Thank you for watching this video. I know it's been heavy, but it's important, and I'm committed to using every medium that I have access to not just try and mitigate the harm of this film, but to tackle everything that leads us to the point where a film like this gets made and then nominated for awards, because it's not okay. If you like my ramblings, you can follow my blog, queerlyautistic.com, which I update occasionally. Or you can follow me on Twitter @queerlyautistic, where I talk all about things queer and autistic and beyond. You can also pre-order my book, Queerly Autistic, The Ultimate Guide for LGBTQIA+ Teens on the Spectrum, at Amazon, Waterstones, or any other book-related buying place that you like. I will include links in the description. Thank you for watching. Bye!